Hello, good afternoon, and thanks for being here. My name is Francisco Cabrera, and I'm a technical program manager at the AKS hybrid team. And today I'll be talking around how you can scale Kubernetes to the edge with AKS Edge Essentials and Azure Arc. And before talking about our product, I'd like to talk a bit about the IT and the OT landscape. So we're seeing that there's an increase in this convergence between the IT and the OT across a very kind of heterogeneous environment. So this diagram shows the diversity, which is spanning everything from small sensors and endpoints on the far left, all the way up to multi-cloud deployments on the far right. There is this desire to bring more consistency in the governance and the security across this kind of vast spectrum. And this is driving this IT and OT convergence. At the same time, there is also a need to drive more consistency in the applications and the services, and to enable this portability of workloads in order to increase the adoption of the cloud-native applications and services and programming models across the entire spectrum. So we're trying to bring different planes. So first, the data plane, in order to kind of have the same data flow across the spectrum. Second, the control plane, in order to manage the distributed infrastructure, distributed compute, distributed network, storage, all the resources available at the edge, and being able to control those directly on this kind of a unified control plane. Then we have the orchestration plane, in order to manage all the workloads and manage kind of all the services and all the Kubernetes things that are running inside this infrastructure available both on the cloud and on the edge. And finally, we have the management plane, in order kind of to project all the resources to the cloud, and using Azure Arc, enable all these kind of Azure services on the infrastructure provided by the customer. And when it comes to the challenges on this kind of OT edge, we're seeing that there are a lot of challenges, maybe more than in the cloud. So the first thing is that there's a lot of edge AI workloads. These are generally kind of Linux workloads, and a lot of the kind of container and workload innovation is happening on the Linux side. But at the same time, we see, there's a ton of kind of Windows devices and Windows shops. So bringing this Linux workload would mean that they will need to run a Linux OS, and that means that they need to run additional infrastructure, more management kind of tools, new skills, and more investments. At the same time, while Kubernetes, or at least the Kubernetes API, has emerged as this kind of mainstream option for container orchestration at the kind of data center scale, orchestration is much more complex at the edge. So the key is to find a way to abstract the processes that are in kind of operating system architecture specific, because at the edge, this is it's more heterogeneous than on the cloud. Multiple architectures, multiple kind of operating system, and multiple versions. Third, there are also limited kind of resources available at the edge. So the concept of scale up and scale out, those are much more complex, because actually scale up means just putting more physical memory to the device, or scale out actually means to move into another device, and maybe you don't have another device. Fourth is that we have also limited connectivity available at the edge. There's scenarios where maybe these devices are completely offline, or they have an intermittent connectivity, and they just connect every 2 months. For example, a ship that is traveling across the ocean and have no connectivity until it reaches a port. And finally, is the life cycle of the Kubernetes needs to be managed separately from the OS of the kind of of the OS of this bare metal device. So this at scale is not only a significant management challenge, but also could be operational risk. So what is AKS Edge Essentials? It's a Kubernetes platform. So it's lightweight, it's CNCF conformant for both K3s and KDS distributions. It's designed to operate on constrained devices, so with minimal footprint and minimal compute and available memory. So you just only need 2 virtual CPUs and 4 GB of RAM. It's fully supported and managed by Microsoft. We run the cluster in kind of Hyper-V isolated virtual machines. And also we include many features in order to help secure your container infrastructure. When it comes to the cluster, you can deploy a single machine cluster, or you can join and deploy a set of machines in order to form a cluster. We provide PowerShell scripts and all the command lists in order to setting up both single machine or multi-machine clusters. And You can also run both Linux and Windows VMs. So that means you can actually run Linux or Windows containers. It's up to the user to choose what type of nodes they want to run. And finally, you can connect the control plane of your cluster all the way to the cloud, to the Azure portal, using Azure Arc connected clusters. And you can actually deploy application all to the way down to your cluster directly from Azure. So now I'm going to be showing a demo on how you can deploy Kubernetes to your edge devices using Azure Arc and AKS Edge Essentials. So here we have, it's a hardware Intel NUC, a Windows IoT Enterprise device. And what we'll be doing is we're going to be first connecting this Windows IoT Enterprise device using the Azure Arc enabled servers. Second step, we'll be using the PowerShell, the custom script PowerShell extension for Windows directly from Azure Arc in order to download, the installer, deploy the AKS Edge Essentials cluster, and finally, the third step, we're going to be connecting this cluster to the Azure Arc enabled Kubernetes so that we can actually see all the resources and see everything directly from the cloud. So now let's go ahead and show you the demo. We will start by connecting the Windows host OS using Arc for server. So we'll go to the Azure portal, into Azure Arc, select servers, add one generic script for a single server. Next, I'll be using my AKS resource group, and in particular, I'm going to be using East2US and Windows. I'll just leave all the location tags empty, and it's going to generate a script, so I'll just download it. Let's open a PowerShell window, and I'll just go to my downloads folder. And if I do there, I can see the onboarding script. So I'll just run it. It's going to connect it to Azure. So let's go ahead and check it. So if we go, I'll just close these. I'll just Arc for servers and just refresh. We can now see my device is connected. So the second step now is deploying AKS Edge Essentials using the PowerShell script extension. So I'll just go to extensions, add, and here I have the custom script extension for Windows. Just next. You need to upload first to the container storage. You need to upload the script. So I already did that. You can see here AKS Edge Remote Deploy ES1. If you want to use the same script, you can go ahead and download these from our AKS Edge Essentials GitHub. It's the same script. The only thing that you need to do is make sure before running, you'll have to set up all these configurations in order to get your cluster up and running. In particular, I need to just make sure that I run it with the correct tag number. And also because I want to connect it to Arc, connect the clusters, I need to get the managed service token. So I'll just again create and create it. This can take a couple of minutes. So let's just refresh until it's finished. Let's go ahead and refresh. You go ahead and check the output here. 5 extensions. We can see it's still creating. Let's wait a bit more. So you can see now that it's succeeded. So we can go ahead and check the logs. If we go here, we can see the actually AKS Edge new deployment successfully created. At the same time, we can see that it's connecting to Azure Arc, the cluster. Azure Arc connection successful. And finally, I can get the AKS Edge managed service token. So I'll just copy these. And if I go here, back to Arc, I can go to Kubernetes clusters and I can see my NUC 5 using K3s. So if I go to workloads, I can go ahead and use the managed service token that I just got sign in. And here you can see all, the pods that are running, all the workload running. You can actually check the namespaces. You can check the services, all directly from Azure Arc Connected Cluster. So I hope that you enjoyed the demo. Please go ahead and check AKS Edge Essentials. It's really simple to test it. It takes no more than 5 minutes, and you can have a cluster up and running on your Windows 5. So thank you so much.